Brenda, thank you so much for having me to your studio today, the Art Giraffe. You know, I'm gonna diverge from where I usually start and ask you why you named your studio the Art Giraffe.
Well, I always love giraffes. They're just so gentle and they have the most beautiful eyes. And so that started this. And then the logo started because the two F's in giraffe you could convert into a painting of the giraffes. And so that's how that started. So when I decided to do the studio, it just came a natural.
I love that in your studio it says stick your neck out and try something new. I think that that describes your art really well because you have so many different mediums that you do and do really well.
Oh, thank you.
How did that all get started?
I taught art in elementary school, and so when you teach art, you have your fingers in a little bit of everything to teach the kids the different mediums. And so once you start that, then I fell in love with all the things too. So that way it keeps you from being bored because you can go from one thing to another thing, and it helps be a little ADD when you're an art teacher. And so I jump around. So that's how that happened.
So obviously because you chose to go into art in your career, you must have known that you had a strong love of it. When did that begin?
Oh, my mom says I was drawing when I was 3. So all through childhood, my parents were very supportive and had a box of stuff for us to always create with. And it was, you know, their encouragement that led me into that. And in high school, I was in a lot of art classes and doing a lot of things, and went to college for that. So it's just always been part of my life and a passion.
Were you always good at it?
Oh no, because you gotta learn and you gotta practice, but I think it was a gift of God that I could do it and then just practice and expand upon it.
Let's talk a little bit about your pen and ink stuff. When did you really fall in love with that?
Probably in the 80s, maybe. This lady was doing, from Wabash, was doing the ornaments for the city of Wabash. And then she had to move. I was doing the calligraphy for her and she was doing the pen and ink. And then she had to move out east and she goes, here, finish this. And I went, oh, okay. And so that's when I started doing buildings, and I've done house portraits, a lot of house portraits.
I was gonna ask you about that. What is it about houses that you are drawn to?
I just love architecture and perspective and trying to get all those pieces of the puzzle in perspective. And my dad was a contractor, so, you know, I had that building gene in me or something.
Yes.
But it was great to, I just think it's really fun where you can see two sides in perspective and try to get a building that looks like it's not on the edge of the earth, but actually sitting on ground.
Again, I could not do that to save my life.
I bet I could teach you.
I bet you could. So let's talk about that. You taught art for your career, and you apparently hadn't had enough of it because that's how the Art Giraffe kind of came to be. Is that correct?
Right. When I retired, then I love to teach. So when I retired, I wanted to continue doing homeschool kids and adults. And so it was about 2 years after I retired, we were kind of looking around for a place to do it. We decided we'll just convert the pole barn into a studio, and then instead of driving 45 miles to work, I now am 43 steps from the house. And so that worked out really, really great. And this has been really fun because I'm always forgetting something, so I'm running back to the house. Now I don't have to go so far, I can get to the building.
I think it's interesting that you also love and are so proficient with watercolor, because to me it seems so different than pen and ink, which is so, you know, sort of precise, and then watercolor kind of takes on its own life. What is it that you love about watercolor?
Probably that right there.
Yeah.
Because you're very precise with pen and ink, or mine is very detailed with a small pen. And so you got to let go once in a while and just let the medium dictate what you're doing. And that's why watercolor is fun, because you have no control and the water media does its own thing, and you just kind of flow along and try to direct it where you want it to go. So
tell me what the biggest lesson you learned from your years of teaching prior to the Art Giraffe were. Did you learn about yourself as an artist?
Patience. Patience, probably, teaching children and letting them be creative. And once you presented something, then let them do what they feel, I think is probably the best thing I learned from school. And that helped me with my children, and then I guess raising my children helped me with teaching school.
Sure. So we talked about watercolor, pen and ink. What are some other mediums that you love?
I have been doing pastels for the last couple of years, and I'm really trying to learn and teach pastels. I usually made such a mess, I was usually wearing most of it, and so I've tried to control that a little bit, but I like that medium. It's back to drawing right on a canvas instead of drawing before and then painting it in, so that's fun.
So as you learn all of these new mediums, are you self-taught? Are you taking classes? How do you become proficient at all of these beautiful works?
Well, I was a oil major, and my proficiency in college was oil. And then when the boys came along, there was no place for me to put them when I'd paint while they napped, and then they got up and put their fingers in it.
Sure.
And so that's when I went to watercolor. And then I took some classes to get started in watercolor, and then just kept learning and reading and that sort of thing. Pastel, I took a class to see what I was doing wrong, and then worked on that. So I just keep reading and trying and experimenting.
Is it safe to say that you have good instincts? When you try something that you've never tried before, are you at least moderately good at it generally?
Not necessarily, but I don't give up. And that's, if you fail, it's just a piece of paper. So you can, paint the back of it or try something else with it. So I'm pretty, persistent of not giving up. And that presents a challenge of, okay, I got to be able to do this better than this. It's that creative spirit that the Lord gives you. Plus, it's a passion. It's part of you that if I had to stop creating, I'd probably go nuts, because it's just part of me and part of the passion. So whether it's the flower beds or something else, there's art every place.
What is your biggest challenge as an artist?
I would say teaching, so that they're so excited and they're coming out with something that they're happy with and that they've learned. The adults, for the last 3 years, I've had this watercolor class with adults, and they're really good, but they have very low self-esteem. Whereas a child, you give it to them, they know they can do it.
Right.
And I think building up self-esteem for somebody that, may come into art after they've retired and have had bad experiences before, and then find out that they can really do it, and then keeping them encouraged to keep trying.
How gratifying is that, especially with the adults, when they maybe have the mindset that they aren't going to be good, but they'll do it for fun, and then they discover.
Then they find out that they can.
Yes.
That is really neat.
Is it hard to translate your thoughts on how to do certain pieces to others? Clearly I struggle to find words. So I can imagine that when you're trying to describe something that is so visual, it can't be easy.
You have to slow down, because if I was just painting it, I would just keep going and painting. And so to teach, you have to kind of simplify. How do I simplify this so that they understand, but then they'll expand on it too and keep going with it. I find that's a challenge some days, because I just want to take their brush and do it, but I don't want to touch their painting.
Yes, I have a toddler, so I totally understand that you want them to learn, but
right.
Yes, I get that. What has art taught you about yourself?
I think that it taught me to reach out to people, because, artists were kind of seclusive people, and we could very easily just go into the studio and hibernate and do our own little thing. And I would be very good at that for a couple days, and then I'd have to reach out and help somebody or teach somebody or talk to someone about art. And it made a really good opening to be a witness to other people of, look what the Lord did, or isn't this a beautiful day and the sun is shining and it's gorgeous. So I think that was a great gift.
If from here on out you could give your students one piece of advice, what would that be?
Probably stick your neck out and try something new, because, you know, people are hesitant to try something new that they think they're going to fail. And, you know, that's how you learn. You wouldn't believe all the failures that are around here that, you know, you can fix or you can try again. And failure's not the end. It's when you don't try after you failed or made a mistake. And in art, there's hardly any mistakes, because you just go with the flow and make something great out of it.
What a perfect way to end this interview. Brenda, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
I'll take that with me, but also just for inviting us here and for sitting down with me.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks
for coming.
Arts in Focus on PBS Fort Wayne is funded in part by the Our Foundation and the Community Foundation of Greater Fort Wayne.